What's up, everybody? Welcome to S.W.A.T MMA. We're smoking weed and talking mixed martial arts. My name is Jarrod. I'm here with Paul.
What up?
We're coming to you from the fight capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. This is episode number 86, and it is our end of the year award show for boxing and mixed martial arts. We've got awards to hand out for KO of the year, Fighter of the Year, Gym of the Year, and a whole host of others. Before we dive into all that stuff, let's get started with our Weed of the Week.
Smoke weed every day.
All right, Paul, as this is our end of the year show, we are finishing the year up with some of our favorites that we've smoked on throughout the year. So, of course, we've got the Gorilla Glue number 4, which we have greatly enjoyed all year long.
Weed of the year.
Weed of the year for us, really. That was some dank. And I've been saving some for today. We've got the OG Kush.
Yup.
We've got the Platinum OG.
Yep, keeping it in the OG.
And we have our Ghost Train Haze THCA Diamonds.
Y'all.
All the best of the best for us
Best
today.
of the best.
We've got this big, fat, beautiful glass piece right here. We've got the trusty bottle bong. We've got a couple of joints rolled. And, of course, we have our PAX 3 for these diamonds. So, Paul, I'm going to fire up a joint. You're going to smoke on that bong. And we've got a fun show today. We've got 2020 coming to a close. It's been a tumultuous year, to say the least, Paul. And I think everybody worldwide is looking forward to ushering in 2021. Before we do that, though, just like everybody else, we want to kind of go over the best of the year as far as we're concerned, focused mainly on mixed martial arts with a little bit of boxing tossed in as well. Whew, that was a monster hit, my friend. Paul just took hit of the year if you're watching on video. I'm going to hit this too, man. This is a nice big bubbler if you're watching on video. We hope as you're ending 2020 that you are smoking on some fine herb or some fine concentrates as well. Before we get into the fights, I do want to say 2020 did see a lot more growth as far as legal cannabis goes, at least here in the United States, with the majority of the states here now recognizing at the bare minimum medical.
I think there's only 3 states left that don't either have decriminalized weed or some version. You know what I mean? Whether it be medical, low THC products, stuff like that.
We've seen a boom in CBD being accepted as a valid treatment for people.
CBD's everywhere. They're opening fucking stores on every corner. For real. You're seeing them in shopping malls. Like, a lot of people are pushing, like, CBD dog treats and stuff like that now. And
everywhere
you see.
And with this boom in both legalized recreational cannabis and medicinal cannabis, we continue to see the erosion of the stigma of lazy, ignorant pot smokers, which is a stigma I feel like I fought against my whole life. I mean, outside of this show, I'm self-employed. I'm an entrepreneur. I've been a business owner since I was in my early 20s in one way or the other. Yeah. Not that I haven't held jobs in between as well, but it's always been about the hustle. And I've been smoking weed this whole time too. Yeah. I haven't spent a lazy fucking day in my life unless I chose to, and the cannabis had nothing to do with it. Yeah. And as more and more people see that they get legalized cannabis and then they look around them and the world doesn't fall apart, their city doesn't fall apart, the crime doesn't blow up, it helps erase this bullshit that the U.S. government started feeding people back, in the 20s, like that new sign we got in the studio over there with the Pulp Fiction anti-marijuana campaigns and everything that we've seen. You flash forward to 2020, and that is a highlight of this year and what's been a shitty year. But with this past election, we see more states fall, and hopefully that's something we can start seeing worldwide.
Yeah, weed is what we need.
It's crazy to think that, our audience here is worldwide. And, bro, there's still places in this fucking world where you will go to jail, you will go to prison, and in some places you will be put to death for cannabis.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like, it's absolutely nuts. You can fly into Singapore and be drug tested as a tourist coming off the plane,
jail
a
for
non-citizen,
fucking 5 months.
they can test you for THC and put your ass in fucking jail.
Yeah.
And if you get caught with in Singapore, I believe it's more than a quarter ounce of cannabis, you are labeled as a distributor and you can be put to death.
Yeah, it's nuts.
I mean, that's crazy.
I mean, we're also talking about where we're talking about.
Right. But it's pretty cool to hear where we are, at least. I mean, we can go to the store and buy this stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So
it's crazy to think what has all happened in really the last probably 2 to 3 elections. We've literally revolutionized the whole industry if you really look at it. You
absolutely.
know what I mean? Like, people are more even to the point of where they're taking federal legalized cannabis laws to Congress, whether they're getting shot down or not. The fact that they're here in the bill is progress.
Yeah, it has to start somewhere, and it starts with the bills being brought to the floor and the debate getting started.
Yeah.
And people not giving up on that process.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, tough year health-wise. Great year cannabis-wise.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm happy, and I'm looking forward to this expanding throughout 2021.
One thing that we did realize, though, in 2020 is that no matter how you try to stop people or, people are always going to find a way. And that's what the UFC and a lot of other MMA organizations, a lot of these fighting organizations, the NBA, a lot of sporting franchises and promotions have really stepped up and found ways to still put on shows, still put on events, and that's this is us today. Although it's been a shitty year, there's still been great parts of this year. We've seen some great knockouts. We've seen some great fights. We've seen some great football games, basketball games, everything.
Absolutely.
So this is our chance to look on the bright side of 2020. You know what I mean? Shit happened, but we're getting through it. 2021 is going to be great, but let's look back a little bit and give out a couple awards to some people who put some work in 2020.
Absolutely. And before we dive into our, MMA and boxing awards here, I'll give some credit to Dana White.
Yeah, for sure.
I wasn't on board with the giant bandwagon against him, but I was nervous when this was going on because we still at that time didn't really know what was happening here. And I don't want to really get into the debate of whether or not he should or shouldn't have done what he did. Yeah. The fact is he did it and was pretty successful. I don't think the
a lot
fact
of people's
that
jobs too.
Absolutely, and I don't think the fact that some athletes came down, with the virus doesn't mean that it was unsafe or unsuccessful. Everybody was fine. People follow protocol. They isolate afterwards. You know what I mean? Like, it happens. Like,
shit happens. Well, they did the best they could for
They did the best they could,
yeah.
And Dana, he releases that little video kind of clowning on the media.
Yeah.
And they got all butthurt about that. I see a bit of his point there. You know what I mean? He did do it, and kudos to him. I don't think he did it for the fighters like he tries to do it. I think he did it mainly to make certain that the UFC hit their guaranteed shows to get the payout from Disney. But irregardless, he got it done.
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's one, his own want to keep the train moving. He's the kind of businessman where he didn't give up. Yeah, he's not going to either. Like, on any real venture he has in his life. Like, this is being the head of the UFC is his fucking everything, every waking moment of every day.
Absolutely.
There's been countless stories of fighters that have talked about how Dana's called them at 3 a.m., 2 a.m., and he's like, oh, shit, sorry, I didn't know you were up. I've been up for fucking all day. Like, pretty much the guy doesn't sleep. So when you eat, drink, and sleep promoting and fighting, you're going to find a way. You know what I mean?
100%. Now, Dana does a lot of things that I disagree with, and he pisses me off a lot. But I also love the guy for a lot of the things that he does.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it is with everybody if you really stop and think about it. Be it the president of the UFC, the president of the United States, the president of your fucking high school.
Yeah.
Wherever it is, you don't like everything that everybody does, but that doesn't mean you hate everything either. And just because Dana doesn't pay fighters enough doesn't mean that I don't like and appreciate a lot that he does for this sport.
Without Dana White, the UFC wouldn't be where it is.
Yeah, he did a lot this year, so kudos to Dana.
Yeah.
Honorary award to Dana White.
Yeah, Dana White gets asshole of the year.
But we got, around 11 or so awards here to
Yeah.
name.
We
11
got
or
some
so
nominees, some
categories.
people we wanted to
Yeah.
highlight from the year that maybe not everybody's winners, but a lot of these guys put on for their their people and their name and legacy.
Yeah, we're not just trying to regurgitate the same, obvious picks that everyone makes, but in some instances, I think you can't deny.
There's obvious winners
Yeah.
in a few categories.
Yeah, you can't
absolutely.
deny what the greatest, fights and fighters are. But let's go ahead and get started here, and we'll start not at the bottom of the list, but we'll start with maybe the least dramatic and work our way up to
Least dramatic, and let's
fight
be
of
honest.
the year and fighter
Our first
of the year.
category is the base of every
Yeah, it's
fight.
the base of everything. It's
So
going to
the
be the coach and gym of the year. Right?
Coach and gym of the year. So when you look at this category, you kind of got to think about who fights where, who comes out of where, the magnitude of the fights that their guys have won.
The magnitude is important. The stakes.
Yeah.
The stakes are very important. People can put on they can have a lot of wins on their team overall.
Mm-hmm.
Then you might have a gym that only has a few, but the stakes were really, really high. And you have to kind of try and weigh what means more.
Exactly, yeah.
Which is kind of what we tried to do here. What were the nominees, Paul?
So our nominees for this year's Coach of the Year, we got Conan Silveira over at ATT. He's head coach for a lot of guys, former head coach of Colby Covington, guys like Dustin Poirier, Jorge Masvidal. He's Amanda Nunes, freaking, he's got tons of
can't forget about Amanda. Paige Van Zant's over there now for her
Yeah.
BKFC debut.
Tons of talent.
The list goes on and on.
Yep, and then going down the list, we got Eugene Behrman over at City Kickboxing, obviously the head coach of guys like Alex Volkanovski, Israel Adesanya, Dan Hooker, another
Tremendous
team
year
that
they
put
had
on a
over there.
hell of a you got three title fights. Two with Adesanya. Maybe the first one wasn't the greatest title fight, but he still a win. And then he, of course, starches Costa, and then on the other side you got Volkanovski beating Max the second time.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you disagree or agree, those are two or three terrific wins for the
And
for
the
the
stakes
team.
are very high right
Absolutely.
there. Yes.
Absolutely. And then going down, we got Trevor Whitman. Kind of some mixed results for them over there this year. You got Gaichi, who wins the title, interim
Gaethje
title.
had a good year.
Had a hell of a year, I
mean,
think.
he loses to Nurmagomedov, but let's be honest, you don't lose a lot of shine with that loss. Nobody does.
No shame in a loss to
I mean,
Khabib.
all of the top tier of the lightweight division now has lost to Khabib.
Yeah, more
and
or less. Yeah.
that speaks a lot for his skill set. But despite that loss, that doesn't take away for a tremendous year. Same with with ATT with Poirier. He comes in and then he loses, of course, to Nurmagomedov as well. But
So, yeah, and then continuing down the list, we got Henry Hoof over at Sanford MMA. They got Gilbert Burns, who put on, probably one of the best runs.
now Sanford MMA, this is the former Black Zillions team, correct?
Uh-huh.
So yeah, they got Gilbert Burns.
You got Michael Chandler.
Chandler had a good fight this year,
Yep. You got Usman, who won his fight.
of course.
But Usman was with Whitman. I forgot.
He did kind of bounce back over.
Bounced
over
back
to Whitman,
because
didn't
originally it was him and Burns were scheduled to fight.
he? Right.
Yeah, and then
I
Burns
hope
got
that
the
gets put
Rona.
back on.
Yeah. So, those are our nominees.
Because we can't forget, isn't Young Jacek? Is she still out of ATT or did
Oh,
she
yeah,
move?
she is. I think she is at
Yeah,
ATT.
I mean, she had a tremendous fight
Oh, yeah.
this year.
Yeah,
And her fight
hell
against
of a
Wally
fight.
Zhang was,
Hell of a
oh
fight.
my God.
But
So,
she's got, shit, I forgot his name. Mike Brown. Mike Brown.
yeah, she's got Mike Brown. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Still another, the whole gym over at ATT. It's hard to never give them an award. You know what I mean?
Well,
They freaking win damn near every year. This year, though.
well, after much joint smoking and heavy discussion and secret ballots amongst you and I, the winner of Coach/Gym of the Year 2020 is
City Kickboxing.
City Kickboxing. And you know the main reason why that Eugene
Magnitude of the
Behrman
fights.
is the magnitude of those fights over there.
3
You
wins,
had-
3 titles.
Yeah, and 3 big championship fights. I mean, the rematch with Holloway, I think the rematches are just so much harder for the
Oh,
champion
yeah.
to come in and win again. And yes, it was a close fight. And
Close
yes, there's
fight.
an argument Max
Yeah.
won. But in the end, it doesn't really matter because he
He edged
didn't
it out.
win. and Volkanovski's still champ.
And then if you also look at Dan Hooker, another fight where Dan Hooker lost, but put on one of the best fights I freaking have ever seen in my life. Like, literally.
Absolutely. Dan Hooker this year showed himself to be a real threat.
Absolutely. He is 100%.
He is,
with Khabib leaving, too, and that grappling no longer
right.
being,
He's right in the mix now
like,
with the Gaichis and the McGregors and the Fergusons and now Oliveira, and now you got to throw him in there as well. Conor, of course, and Dan Hooker.
So, yep. Congratulations.
Yeah, tremendous year over there. We talked a lot about them last year as well. They've just kind of burst onto the scene in the past 24 months.
Well, if you think about what Izzy's done in the
look
last
at Israel
2 years,
Adesanya.
nuts.
Look at his fight against Costa. I mean, that was supposed to be the big fight. That was supposed to be the better Romero, and people argue that he had trouble with Romero.
Yeah.
The fight sucked. Whatever didn't happen, Yeah. And he had that added pressure on him of fighting a similar guy, and he came out and just put an emphatic stamp and shut that bullshit talk down.
Yeah.
So, an amazing year for those guys. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one, which is...
Oh, my card of the year.
Card of the year. Now, we're going to look at UFC mainly for this, right? It's hard to compete with UFC on something like card of the year.
Even when you look over in boxing, too, because no one's really putting together cards.
Boxing's not... Yeah, nobody puts on cards in boxing. And
Bellator
tries, but
tough.
Their model is to fill out the bottom of their cards with regional fighters. Now, they get a lot of controversy on that because people don't understand. And so I'll explain it to the best of my understanding real quick. For those in our audience that might think that Bellator skimps out and doesn't pay those guys shit. Because you see the fight payouts and you see these guys on the bottom, but they'll get a win and it's like 1,000 and 1,000 for 2,000, and you're like, what the fuck? And you'll see someone even at 500
they
and
take
500.
like smaller promotions.
These are literally local fighters out of local gyms that are getting an opportunity to fight in front of their local crowds.
It's like
on
a tryout.
Big card. It's like a tryout.
Yeah, it's like a Dana White contender
and
series.
it is literally the biggest fight of their lives.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, they might not have even fought for money before. They might just be doing pro fights and losing money, for fuck's sake. So they're not signing these guys to big deals. They're not traveling around. It's a one-off opportunity for fighters that could use that. Yeah. And that's just the model that Bellator uses. So that's different in my mind than the UFC drastically underpaying these guys with like 8-8 contracts or 10-10s are the minimum now. Yeah. Anyways, so that's how Bellator does it. But when you do that model, it's kind of hard to fill out a card top to bottom with really exciting quality names. So we look to the UFC for this. And, Paul, this is a year that was tough card-wise.
It was tough. Well, here's the thing.
Some of them were pretty
You start with
crappy.
the bang with the Conor and Cowboy fight.
Conor Cowboy. Yeah.
And then,
then the pandemic hit.
Pandemic happens and life gets kind of weird for a little bit. UFC goes away for a little bit. Everybody goes away.
And you got fighters who can't train.
Yeah.
Because their gyms are closed. Like people were trying to toss Stipe flat because he wasn't signing on the dotted line to fight DC. But in Cleveland, he couldn't fight. He had no gym. What was he supposed to do? I live here. Yeah. He was a paramedic there, firefighter there. He can't just. And
then we have our first event with no crowd in Kevin Lee versus
Charles
Oliveira. And then it's when we hit the actual shutdown and things go away for 2 months or something like that?
About 2 months, yes.
About 2 months. We come back and we get, Ferguson and Gaichi, which was just, it's unfair how good that card is because everyone was off for so long that everyone was available.
Right. There's not much competition for this. That's the card, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the winner right there. Is the Ferguson Gaichi card?
That's my winner, but I would like to highlight some other good cards.
Well, let's talk about those too. But definitely that card had the advantage of
just being off. Like everybody was off. Everybody was, down to
after
fight.
After that, it's back to the weekly grind, literally, where you had fighters falling off.
Not necessarily. The first couple weeks after that, also
not immediately after,
but like a month or so
stretch.
after. Yeah,
I mean, we had 3 months of straight fights every weekend here at the end. I believe UFC just cramming them in to hit that number, but
they did. But there were some good cards throughout this year. Not gonna lie. So, like we talked about a little bit earlier, you got UFC Vegas 4, Poirier versus Hooker.
That was a hell of a fight.
Hell of a fight. Like, one of the greatest fights. Like I said, one of the greatest fights I've ever seen in my life. Like, it's just a back and forth, never give up, never say quit. Both guys willing to die in there type fight.
We ultimately see Poirier get the win.
Yeah, which it was close, man. Like, don't get me wrong, I had Poirier winning. I'm not saying it's controversial, but I'm just saying that
That was a close fight.
it was like Hooker was giving it to him, and like it was like early Poirier kind of looked like, you know, he was the vet, you know, going into the first one. He was sitting down a little bit more, hitting him a little bit harder. But then that second, third round, like Hooker was just giving him everything back. You know what I mean? He was just giving him everything he had, but ultimately just ran out of gas.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing that young guys like him can learn from that. And when they get into another 5-round fight, he's not going to run out of gas. You know what I mean? He's going to be able to pace himself a little bit more. Because I think that was only his second 5-round fight of his career.
I think that sounds right.
Well, he's the second fight that's actually gone 5 rounds. He might have had other 5-round fights, but I don't think he's ever gone 5 except 2 times. And in the other fight, same thing. Then we also had Mckee Gall and Mike Perry on that card as well. Which
that was the Austin card. That one wasn't here in Vegas. That was a Fight Night Austin card.
Was it Austin?
Yeah.
Oh,
but
sick.
that did have Mckee Gall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was Mckee Gall and Mike Perry. And Mike Perry fucking showed him what it's like to be at the top of the division.
Yes.
See, that's
Mckee
like
Gall
the problem.
Doesn't belong there, unfortunately.
That's the problem with Mike Perry. Is he'll give you performances like that, and then he'll turn around and do what he did a couple weekends ago and show up 8 pounds overweight and fucking, you know, put on a good fight, but just not be what he could be. You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like Mike Perry could be so much better.
That's a whole show.
He said that's a whole show.
Dude, I love Mike Perry. Like, as a fighter,
Yeah.
I think that guy is... I'm not saying he has the potential to be the champ forever, but he has the potential to win a lot of fights.
Yeah.
And he's so exciting, and he seems to be
Just needs controlled
shooting
chaos.
himself in the foot a little bit with what appears to me to be stubbornness and a fuck you attitude, which is important to have in a fighter, but he doesn't seem to want to
let anyone in.
Let anyone in coach-wise. He clearly doesn't trust cornermen. And so I don't know, when he sees success with that, I don't know if that's good or bad. Like, because overall I think it's bad, but when he sees success, he's like, fuck it, it's working.
Yeah, exactly.
So we'll see what he does now. Now he's coming off some losses. But against Mckee Gall, he looked outstanding on that card. We also had again, Vellante versus Maurice Green. Yeah, which
I remember that.
Green winds up getting the sub.
Yep.
Which that was, I liked that fight. It was good. I like Vellante up at heavyweight.
You do? I don't.
I do, just because heavyweight needs blood in there. But I mean, he's clearly just out of shape. But,
he's just clearly.
I mean, he's just like, fuck it, I'm gonna eat, and then I'll be a heavyweight.
Just kicking it with Weidman all the time. Fucking just chilling.
We had that 48-second KO at welterweight, Sato versus Witt. That was pretty exciting. Yeah, that was good. Yep. Overall, that was a very exciting card.
Yeah, for sure. And then, of course, can't forget fucking the Fight Island, mega card with Khabib and Gaichi, which was fucking really good card up and down. We had Kutalaba get just fucking rocked by Arkelev.
Finally got that shit fight
off. That was such a sick knockout.
Yeah.
That knockout doesn't give as much love. Like, it's not going to... Obviously, it's not on the list for later on. Like, and I haven't seen it on many people's lists. But that was a fucking nice one.
That was monstrous.
Yeah, because he, knocked him out twice. It's like one where he, knocked him out on his feet. He fell down, and he knocked his ass out on the ground, too. It was fucking nasty. But, yeah. So then, of course, this is kind of recency bias. But you also kind of look to the Figuerato versus Brandon Moreno fight and that card. And
that card was pretty decent.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. And you know what?
Capped off by that fight was amazing.
Well, and here's the thing too, is it's the underdog too, because remember that card had so many things go wrong. Yeah, originally wasn't it Amanda Nunes versus Megan Anderson?
Yes, it sure was.
And then it turned into Aljo versus Peter Yan. And then it turned into what eventually turned into a lot of people's fight of the year, Figueredo versus Brandon Moreno, which was a fucking barn burner.
That was an amazing fight.
Yeah, like we found out how good Brandon Moreno was that night. A lot of people had mixed emotions about like how like elite he was. You know what I mean? Because he's the kind of fighter that he would edge out a few of those decisions. You know what I mean? Like he's had some knockouts and had some great performances, but he's also had some ones where he just did what he had to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and he found a great foil in Brendan Moreno in that. I mean, I'm really looking forward to that rematch.
Oh yeah,
That's
for
going to be
real.
amazing.
That's what
Yeah,
Davidson
UFC
Figueredo needed.
256 was definitely a solid card.
That's
as
what
well.
125 needed. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? As a division, they need some kind of, struggle. Something that people want to watch. And that was a huge, huge fight. That might have been one of the best 125 fights I think I've ever seen in my life. Like honestly, if you think about it, what other 125 fights have been that epic? The only one I can really think of is like
I can think
DJ
of epic
and,
moments like DJ's flying armbar.
yeah, but those are moments. I'm talking like
But
fights.
overall fights,
Yeah.
I mean.
The only one I
that
can think
was-
of is like DJ and Uncle Creepy.
Yeah, that was all, the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the only other fight I can think of that they really like.
The one that
those are
DJ
the
technically
two-
lost.
Yeah.
I mean,
But those are like the
not
only
technically, but
the
in
only
reality.
two that I can really look at and be like, those two are probably the two best flyweight fights of all time, at least in the UFC.
Then, of course, on that card, we had Oliveira whooping up on Tony Ferguson.
Yeah, which was super
Mackenzie
surprising.
Dern with a big win. And then, of
Yup.
course, the Kevin Holland versus Jacare Souza.
Which was ridiculous. Just absolutely ridiculous.
For me, this was the number 2 card of the year.
Yeah.
Was that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed the hell out of that. Even the one thing that kind of held it back was I thought the Cyril Gane Junior Dos Santos fight sucked, mainly because Dos Santos just.
Well, I think it sucked because you're disappointed in Junior Dos Santos. I
Yeah,
don't
it
think
is.
that
It's
Cyril-
just bias on my fault.
I don't
I've
think
never
it's
been
Cyril
so
Gane.
disappointed in
Cyril
Junior Dos
Gane
Santos.
looked good to me.
I'm still disappointed in
You
Junior Dos
can't
Santos.
even look at him.
I'm like, we can't talk still, bro. All right, but ultimately, best card of the year being
Yeah, I think it's good. We have to go with the comeback Ferguson versus Gaichi. That was just the whole feel was just completely like it was so different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was like the first fight since COVID, and like remember the announcers were all sitting separate, and they're all like,
Oh, yeah.
you're like everyone. It was a total feeling out process as far as like how the UFC was going to do this from now on. You know what I mean? And not only that, the fights were great too. You had Henry Cejudo with the knockout of Dominic Cruz. You had the freaking, obviously, the main event was Gaethje just put on the masterclass on Ferguson. And, of course, let's not forget, fucking Francis Ngannou. Fucking,
ooh,
ugh.
against Rosenstruck.
Yeah, that was just disgusting.
One of the potential KOs of the year right there. That was an amazing. Yeah, just that right there. Those fights you named off right there sealed the deal.
Oh, yeah.
It was just a tremendous card, tremendous fights. The results. Ooh. Yeah, that was. The UFC did, for all the shit that we talked this year in previous episodes about how they put on a lot of weak cards, because they did.
They did.
They did put out some good quality fucking product this year as well.
Yeah.
And that's no
Ultimately,
argument there.
What more can you ask for?
That's all you need from the world's top MMA promotion.
Yep. So that means our award for card of the year goes to UFC 249.
UFC 249.
And,
So that means it's also time to hit some weed.
yeah,
I would encourage
good point.
you listening as well to do the same. But I'm going to hit the bottle bong. Paul's going to hit the big bubbler. We're going to make a little noise.
I gotta make another hit.
Ooh, my goodness. I got the platinum OG in this. We're going to ring in the new year with some new herb, though.
Yeah, for sure.
That is for sure. Oh, my goodness. Oh, this is going to be one of the final episodes in this current studio location as well.
Yep.
So that's another exciting start to the new year. But now, coming up, we're going to shift into some of the more dramatic, exciting, whatever you want to call it, topics here. We're going to get started with boxing's fight of the year. Now, we had some different candidates for this, right?
Yep.
Boxing, I think, was able to look at Dana White and what the UFC was doing.
Yeah,
and
they
see
came
a
to the game a
blueprint.
little later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now, honestly, before we dive into fight of the year, while we're just talking about boxing, I would say at this point, boxing has actually, at this point in 2020, during the pandemic, boxing has surpassed the UFC right now as far as their live events, because in my mind they have, because they're putting on fights now with crowds in attendance in major stadiums, which the UFC doesn't even want to do with Conor and Dustin at the start of the year, when you've got major events taking place. Like we just had 16,000 people in Texas Stadium a couple weeks ago, and multiple instances before that, which, yeah, it's only 16,000 people in a stadium that seats 100,000, but that's how you do it right now.
You know
And
what
so
I think
for
they're
that
doing?
alone, I think boxing has surpassed UFC as far as production and cards, because to me, the crowd is important.
Yeah.
Fuck, man, when we were looking back over some fights of the year, and like one of the standouts was the women's fight between Joanna Jacek and Wally Zhang, and the crowd was going nuts in that fight. And when you hear it and you rewatch that, and I encourage you folks to do that on YouTube. There's some great highlights if you haven't seen it. The crowd it adds so much when you hear 15,000 fucking people screaming at the top of their lungs.
True.
So I give that to boxing. And they have put on a lot of big fights this year as well. I think the UFC led as far as putting events on, and I think boxing surpassed as far as putting events on.
Here's where I disagree. So here's where I feel like there's a separation.
Okay.
So I do agree with you in part that, yes, the hypeness of the crowd and all that does add to the feel of the fight. But I think ultimately the fights, as far as the product, have been better in the UFC than the fights that have been in boxing. Because if you really look at all the boxing fights outside of Wilder and Fury, Wilder Fury 2, a lot of those fights this year in boxing, like, a lot of them were one-sided. Like, if you really look at them.
Fury Wilder, too, was beat down by Tyson
if you look
Fury,
if you look down the line, like Canelo, domination, Crawford.
I don't mind a dominant fight,
Spence.
though. For me, that doesn't take anything away from the event itself. Like, if you want to talk about, like,
Well, I'm
fight
just saying
of year,
I'm talking like competition.
That's different,
competition-wise, you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like you're right in the fact of, like, yes, the crowd, the experience, all that stuff. That is definitely a part of, it's a part of the game. It's a part of, the feel and everything. But we're also in boxing leaving fights on the table like Crawford and Spence, and leaving fights on the table like AJ and Fury. We're leaving fights on the table like that, and we're getting these lower level fights that are in front of 16,000 people at half capacity, and you know who the fuck's gonna win. Like,
Can't
let's just be
disagree
honest.
with that.
You know what I mean?
I'm speaking solely from the perspective of tuning in as a viewer.
Yeah.
I wish I could attend, and having the fight experience being what I as a TV viewer enjoy, which is a big production with a fucking lot of noise and a big crowd screaming and people,
So,
the whole feel. But
let's say they do something similar. So let's say the UFC going into
I hope they do.
into January, they've talked about like letting limited fans into Poirier and McGregor. Like, it's going to be obviously all the people that are high ranking over there.
In
that,
Abu Dhabi,
that are,
they're going to be shelling out the big bucks
for sure,
to watch
for sure.
the fight.
Yeah.
And that is what it is.
And it'll be like plus their families or something like that. You know what I mean? And
I think that's an improvement. I mean, BKFC had like 500 in attendance, and I thought that was fine.
Yeah, so that's what I'm asking. If they do that, do you think that would change your opinion on who's really shelling out the better
100%.
product?
100%. I liked the novelty of the no crowd in the beginning because you could hear like all the punches land.
Yeah.
You could hear coaches. But that wore off for me pretty quick. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't really want to hear all that shit now. It's just nonsense.
Okay, so let me ask you something real quick. Let's just compare it to any of the other sports right now, right? that are on basketball, football, that are zeroing in on the floor, but then pumping in crowd noise. Do you feel like the UFC should do something similar?
I don't know. I just feel like fighting's different than other spectator sports.
You know what I'm saying, though?
But
But they've,
I don't think they should.
You know, they have hours and hours and hours and hours of people fucking, singing.
No, I think if
the
BKFC
McGregor
can get
song
500
and all that
people
stuff.
safely in a room, if boxing can, and that's in a small scale, and if boxing can do it in a big scale, then UFC can fucking do something, man.
But if you're the UFC,
And I think that would make a big difference for next year.
but if you're the
100%.
UFC though, and you're freaking getting paid to put on events in Abu Dhabi,
it's hard to stop.
it's hard to be like, I'm gonna go rent out the Cowboys
Yeah,
Stadium.
people forget that's an ongoing deal with basically the Board of Tourism, as I understand it, in Abu Dhabi, where they're footing the bill for a lot of stuff.
A lot of shit. Motherfucking fighters are flying first class, fucking all that shit, bro. They all got their separated pods on the planes, all that shit. They've got all that documented on.
Well, they can start getting some more people in there where you can hear them yelling and screaming. That's all I ask for. Can I just feel it? It's like Dana famously says, if two people start fighting in the street, what happens? A big crowd gathers around and watches. Well, we're missing part of that.
Yeah.
Fights are happening, but,
True.
So, anyways, let's shift back in now. So we've got the boxing fight of the year. What were the candidates that we were looking at, Paul?
We got Jose Cepeda versus Ivan Bronchik. I'm sorry, I don't want to butcher his name.
Versus Ivan B.
Ivan Bronchik.
Yeah.
But what a fucking back and forth war that fight was, man. We're talking both guys dropping each other multiple times, and ultimately Cepeda just getting the finish in the end. But man, it was. Like,
That was exciting.
Talk about like a Rocky type like movie fight. Like that's
Hell
what
yeah.
that's what you got there. It
Hell
was
yeah.
the most ridiculous fight ever. And Cepeda is #1 in the world right now. So, the big fights should be coming his way.
Mm-hmm. I'm hoping boxing gives us a big 2021, but we'll see. It's fucking boxing. But that was an absolute barn burner. What's next?
And then we got Jamal Charlo versus Sergey Dermianchenko. Charlo coming up big again.
Absolutely. Another tremendous matchup.
Yeah. Freaking, it's hard to bet against those freaking twins, man. Both guys are just, they're down to scrap.
They are. We're going to have a big year in 2021 from those brothers as well.
Yeah, I think
they are right on the precipice of stardom.
I'm saying, dude, they are like this
right
close to
there,
a few
man.
super fights. Like, for real.
Yeah,
and,
by stardom, I mean like super stardom. Like people,
for real.
And
then, of course, we've got Teofimo Lopez taking on Vasily Lomachenko.
The fight
of the year.
The fight.
I mean, it's hard to pick any other fight.
That was absolutely amazing.
It was the most competitive fight of the year.
Not to brag it up, but it was a fight you and I both literally, like, we weren't guessing. We fucking both could feel it. We've had our eye on Lopez a long time, and of course everybody knows Lomachenko.
Yeah.
We fucking knew that kid was going to win.
Yeah.
Weeks we were talking about it, and it came through, and he did it convincingly.
Yeah.
And it looks like he's going to move on without even
plan.
giving him the rematch now and just drop the fucking belt and be like, peace, bitches.
Yep. Or he might fight
Haney.
Haney's
angling for that.
Haney is talking mad shit.
Because that's the funny thing. Despite ESPN and the sanctioning body trying to tell us that Teofimo Lopez is now the undisputed champ, he is not.
Well,
Devin
it's hard
Haney
to say,
has
though.
a belt that's legit.
It's not really legit though, because
no,
it's
the other one that's not
technically
legit.
No. Let's be
Devin
honest.
Haney is a belt holder.
No.
It is not.
Let's be
undisputed.
honest. I'm not doubting Devin Haney, or I'm not saying Devin Haney is not a championship level fighter. What I'm telling you is though, they made that belt because they knew Lomachenko only fights once or twice a year. So they knew he wasn't going to freaking fight all his mandatories. So they made that belt so they would have somebody to fight the mandatories. So that's what Haney's doing.
Yeah, but he technically holds the
So it's
actual
the franchise
WBC
belt.
lightweight belt.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
But they made Lomachenko's belt, who had that belt before.
Yeah, he made that one the franchise.
They made it a franchise belt, which is stupid. So ultimately, I don't think Devin Haney's
because he had the interim and then he got promoted, to the full champ, like you said. But that's still a dispute. There's still a dispute there. I mean, this is boxing. We're in the Ford sanctioning body.
I'm down
era.
to watch them fight. This is what I was saying earlier.
I'd be down
about
for
the
that,
product.
But I don't think the Lomachenko rematch is happening. I don't think there's any interest in there from Lopez.
Just
and
the
I get
ultimate game plan, going out and getting it done.
That was a tremendous fight.
Yeah.
I mean, Lomachenko gave it to him. Like, he came back.
Yeah. Oh,
he came back late.
I think just a little too late is ultimately what happened. You know, it was just, and then in that last round, Lopez came out trying to kill him.
Yeah,
he
Lopez
knew he
came
had
out
to.
strong.
He knew he had to end it with an exclamation mark. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you saw a good, solid, between rounds like 8 to 10, you saw a lot of strength from Lomachenko.
Yeah.
11, you could see Lopez starting to come back a little bit, but then he came out in the 12th and
12
he put a
just
stamp on it.
Yeah.
And for
bonkers.
me, it was all Lopez early.
Yeah.
But it was a
So
tremendous
the first
fight.
7 rounds was probably all Lopez, or
Yeah.
6 maybe.
Most of my scoring, I believe my scoring for that fight was worse than most people's. I had it 118, 110.
That one chick, I don't know what she was talking about. The one round, that was a little much.
That's a bit much.
That was a little much.
But tremendous fight. That's our fight of the year. Not much debate there for that. The others were great, but that one, the stakes were really high there. You had this young kid coming in. He's 23 years old. He's fighting, the guy that's been the top dog for so long and is still, everybody considered Lomachenko unbeatable except us, apparently.
Yeah.
We should have put fucking a big, huge fat bet on that. But, it's the pandemic, man. I ain't got money to fucking lose. Didn't have money to bet, hardly. But anyways, let's move on to the next one, Paul.
All right, so our next award is going to be for KO of the year in the world of boxing.
In the world of boxing.
Yes, sir. So we had some pretty good knockouts this year, some pretty devastating ones. Like we said, we came back a little bit later, and boxing had to make up for lost time. And these knockouts definitely made up for some great highlight reels. So to start us out, we'll talk about Inoue versus Jason Maloney, which was a freaking. I'll tell you what, Maloney was in the fight the whole time, but it was just
Maloney
Inoue's
was
just too
giving
good.
it to the
He's just too
monster,
good,
but-
bro.
That man glides. He glides
Dude,
in.
yeah. He's
and
like
he
he's on
glides
skates.
out. A lot of fighters
Nuts.
bounce in and out.
You know what I like about him though? He's willing to take a punch to land something
He
really, really big right back.
He seems to have a very, very solid chin.
Yeah.
He's got tremendous power. That's why
He's
I
now
always
20-0.
laugh when Dana White in MMA says things like talk shit on the flyweights in MMA, which are 125 pounds. Nobody likes to watch little guys fight. Little guys don't have any power. Blah, 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 blah. And then you look at boxing, the weight classes go down to 108,
Yeah.
and these guys are all monsters,
Yeah.
let alone Inoue.
Yeah.
And that was a tremendous, tremendous fight against Maloney.
Yeah.
And it's just a ridiculous KO.
Ridiculous.
Like, he had beaten him up a while before that KO was coming.
Oh, yeah.
You could sense
I think it was around the 7th or
It
8th
was the seventh
round.
round.
Yeah.
And you could just, he just kept gliding in and tagging him, gliding back.
Getting
Like
out.
I was saying, a lot of fighters, they bounce in and out.
Bounce
But
in
something
and out,
about
yeah.
him, it's just like he just
It's crazy
floats
too
in
because
and
like
out.
he looks like he's planted, but he's not. Like he's
Right.
planted, but he's able to shift his feet real quick.
And the way he slips punches a lot, not side to side so much, but back. It
Mm-hmm.
looks like he's taking the punch sometimes, and it's just missing him by inches.
Yeah.
It's really amazing work from him. But that was a tremendous KO. I mean,
Yep.
laid him out right through the ropes.
And then our next nominee is Jake Paul versus Nate Robinson. It's a tough one.
Dude, look, it was a kind of a bullshit fight. Or no, look
Wasn't
at
a-
me trying to justify it. It was
Yeah.
a bullshit fight because Nate Robinson knows absolutely nothing about fighting, let alone boxing.
Yeah, but he still got knocked the fuck
Jake
out.
Paul does know some things about boxing. Look, he's been training like 3 years.
Hey,
He is a professional. He is 2-0 against jokes.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
here's the thing. Is the award best?
no, it's the best KO. That
Yeah.
counts as boxing.
Counts
That
as
was
boxing.
fucking sanctioned.
And
It's
he
going
knocked
on
his
Jake
ass
Paul's
out.
record.
Yeah.
And he laid that fool out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really helpful, Paul, when your opponent kind of runs at you with his chin up in the air and his hands down, and he does it repeatedly where, you
Yeah.
know, you can just kind of time that fucking right hand. But he did lay him out flat. Dude became a fucking meme.
Yeah.
I mean, you had the Nate
Made a
Robinson
meme.
challenge, bro. You know you've been KO'd when your prone body becomes the new fucking Instagram challenge.
Yeah. Jesus.
Has anybody heard from him? Has he gone out and said anything, or is he just still in hiding? Because he should be, like, ducking
I
still.
don't know. There's a lot of
'Cause he
dudes
was
from the
talking some
NBA
shit.
that were fucking roasting him. It was pretty funny.
Is It's not even his fault. You should just know better,
Shit.
dude. It's like these
Or
guys, they think because you
I
can
don't even
street
know.
fight a little bit,
Yeah.
you can fuck with a boxer. You can't.
Nah.
Not even if that boxer is Jake Paul.
Yeah, no.
You can't. So,
And
all
then,
right, what's the next one?
The fight we talked about a little bit earlier, Jose Cepedo versus Ivan B. It's another good knockout.
Absolutely.
Another one we were talking about earlier, a little bit. Just a freaking Rocky type fight. Multiple knockdowns on both sides. And then ultimately, Cepedo gets the knockout there.
Yeah,
and
that was
then-
beautiful.
Our last nominee is going to be Javonta Davis versus Leo Santa Cruz with
That
one
was
of
the
the
title
most
fight.
vicious uppercuts probably ever.
Now, this discussion did require a bit more back and forth. We had to go back and watch a lot of fights here.
Yeah.
Like for me, I watched all these over and over again, and there's one that I centered in on. I don't know if you and I agree. Do we agree on the best KO?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then we're going to be talking about Tank Davis
Yeah, for sure.
in the title fight against
Leo Santa Cruz.
Dude.
Just textbook.
If you're listening and you've somehow missed that, go
You gotta
back
go
and
see
watch it, because that was not what a lot of people in MMA like to talk about, flash KOs or lucky punches. That was neither. That was a very calculated blow by Javonta Davis. I mean, Cruz, he was up against the corner, right? He's near the ropes. And throughout this fight, when he was throwing his overhand right, Cruz, it seemed to me like about every third or fourth time he threw that punch, instead of bringing it right back to his chin, Paul, he would dip it down to his waistline, and sometimes he would tap his waist before bringing it back up to his chin. I don't know if he had a problem with his glove or if that was just a bad habit, but Tank Davis definitely noticed it. And when he had him up there against the ropes, you had that overhand right come, and then boom, Davis fires that upper hook right at him. Just he knew he was going to drop that hand down, leaving it wide open for the uppercut, and he twisted it through that left up with just, it's probably the most perfect uppercut KO you can see in a boxing or MMA match, for that matter. I mean, he sank. His lights turned out immediately, sank through the ropes, out cold.
Yeah.
It was a walk-off.
Fast.
Davis knew it. He turned around, pieced out. It was absolutely amazing. And Santa Cruz was no slouch. The stakes were extremely high in this fight.
Oh, fuck.
You're looking at 2 titles on the line. And Davis coming through with that amazing power that he has. This kid has fucking power. And what is he again? He's another one of these small guys. Devastating power.
Yeah.
I mean, my God. Like, I watched that over and over and over again. It was so perfect, Paul. I know he knew he was going to drop that right hand.
Yeah.
And everything from that punch was absolutely perfect. Like, we watched some other fights where you had a lot of uppercuts coming in from the outside. Like, I can't remember the guy's name right now, but you had these big, long, leading uppercuts coming from way
On the Spence
out.
card, right?
Yeah. Which, yeah, it's technically an uppercut, but that's not an uppercut. We're talking about you need to be on the
You just
inside.
meet him in the
You need to
middle.
dip your knee down. You need to twist, and you need to torque your fucking body up. It's not an arm strength punch. When you learn to throw a real uppercut, you don't really move your fucking arm, especially when you're first learning. You put your arm in position, and then you dip and you fucking torque, and you dip and you fucking torque, and that's how you learn the uppercut. And then when you've got that fundamental down, you put a little bit of the arm in it. You know what I mean? And that's what Davis did. God damn, it was so perfect. It might be my favorite KO uppercut of all time. And so that's it. That's the winner, hands down for me. Wasn't much debate upon review.
Sounds good. So next, let's talk about the best KO of the year in MMA.
This was I had a few.
I had a few too. There's
Let's go
some
through
stuff.
the list. We had
Actually,
a lot
can
more.
I talk about a couple honorable mentions real quick?
Yeah, you go ahead. I have an honorable mention as well.
So my boy Calvin Kattar, who was also fighting on January, I think 13th against Max Holloway,
Oh yeah.
had probably one of in any other year the KO of the year against Jeremy Stevens when he just hit him with like the most vicious elbow like ever, just right on the dot, put him to bed. And Yeah, that was an
was
honor.
very-
It was
very
a tough one. And then also can't leave out Sean O'Malley with that freaking
Over Eddie Wineland.
Yeah, that was no look. Bow, bow.
I looked at that one a lot too. That was on my short list.
Yeah. I
Because
feel like it
Wineland
was.
is
I'm telling you, those two knockouts any other year would be like in the discussion, but the ones that happened this year were just so outrageously like ridiculous. They're undeniable. You know what I mean?
absolutely. Well, let's go to the runners in this award competition for KO. That was it for honorable mentions, correct? Because
Well,
mine,
we
I have
are-
an honorable, like a runner-up, but it's on this list. So
Yeah. Well, we have differing opinions on the KO of the year.
we do. Well, let's go
So
through. We've
you
got
go ahead
Francis
first.
Well, let's go through the big list. We've got Francis Ngannou versus
Jairzinho Rosenstruck,
Zeno Rosenstruck.
UFC 249.
Whew. I mean, Ngannou. Of course, he's on our list.
Yeah.
The man's had 4 KO straight in the heavyweight division.
And
He's an absolute terror.
It was one of those knockouts too that was just like, I'm gonna knock you the fuck out. Like he just like got within like a foot and a half of him and just started throwing his hands until fucking Rosenstrike was out. Like literally.
And-
it was not technical. It was not anything but swift and powerful.
Pure strength, speed, and power. And
Yeah.
it was not against an inexperienced fighter. You might look at Rosenstruck's MMA record and think he's fairly new because I think
Yeah.
it was somewhere around 7 or 8-0 at the time.
I think it's like 16.
Something there, but it wasn't big. But he is he's a very long history in
Yeah.
kickboxing. Like he's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
very experienced striker. He's a very experienced fighter.
Yeah.
There were some people thinking he was going to be the guy to fuck up Ngannou.
Yeah.
And it was not even close.
Not even close.
Nope.
Got him
Lights
out of there quick.
out.
And
Next
then,
up in the competition was 135 pounds.
Yeah, Cody Garbrandt with this comeback KO of Rafael Santos UFC 250, which was at the buzzer too. Like
Buzzer of what, round 2?
I believe so. Yeah.
That was a wild one because that, in contrast to the Javonta Davis one in boxing we were just talking about, this was not a picture-perfect
This one
punch. This was a hook slash uppercut.
It was angry. It was angry as hell.
Yes, and he had
was-
basically squatted all the way down and like
It was like
leapt
comic
upwards.
book. It was like comic book level.
It's
like,
only a move you can do in MMA.
Yeah, it
he
was
couldn't do what he did in boxing.
It was intense.
It was
no
very
one would see it
intense.
coming. It was like,
Yeah,
what the fuck?
He dipped way down and then stood up with a hybrid
Yep.
hook uppercut that just laid that fool out.
Gross.
And that was right on the heels of the O'Malley one we mentioned earlier too, because when the O'Malley Wineland kick happened, a lot of people were thinking that was it.
Yeah. It
That
good.
was, and then boom, right after that we get the Garbrandt. People are like, oh shit, no,
Shit. Yeah.
Fight.
Right after. Yeah.
This is it.
Yeah.
Next up on the list, we got Kevin Holland,
Yeah.
Jacare Souza,
Yeah. Which is just a
which we just saw
most
recently.
ridiculous knockout.
But you had them
you'll
in a
ever see.
scramble, and then Holland, from a very awkward position on the ground,
Not even awkward. He just full guard. Just fucking started throwing hooks. It fucking slept him, bro.
well, awkward as far as you don't typically see KOs
Yeah,
from guys
no,
in those
no.
positions. You had Jacare kind of on his knees and Holland kind of scrambling up, and then he
he
just
wasn't
laid him
like
the
really.
fuck out.
He wasn't like really respecting his guard. Like
No.
Like he was in full guard, and Jacare was like sitting on his knees, and
And
Kevin
Holland just starts
whatever.
landing up. He lands a punch, and then he gets up and then just tees off. And
Yeah.
Jacare never makes it up off his knees.
No.
He gets to his knees, takes the punch, and then takes several more, and then just falls
Sweet.
straight back out.
Yeah.
And that's talk about a signature victory.
Signature victory. Holy shit.
My goodness.
And
Man,
then
that gives me goosebumps just thinking about it.
our next nominee, of course, it's on everybody's list. you
Even
know.
people outside of the mixed martial arts bubble undoubtedly saw this one. I mean, it was on talk shows.
Yeah.
It was all over the internet in GIFs and memes and short videos.
Yep. So Joaquin Buckley versus you go ahead and try to say that name. Kasagni? I don't know.
Impa Kasanagi.
Kasanagi? I don't know.
I think it's Kasangane. I think it's Impa
Kasangane?
Kasangane, and I
Yeah,
apologize
maybe. I
if
don't
I'm
know.
mispronouncing it. But what was interesting about that one is Kasangane came in as a favorite,
Yeah.
8-0.
He was freaking winning the fight, low key too.
He was, and Buckley was
Coming off a loss
the
to
underdog,
Kevin Holland.
coming off the loss to Holland.
Yep.
And he lands that kick.
Yeah. He tried to kick him.
Yeah.
He catches it. He jumps in the air and fucking melts him with the spinning back kick.
Yeah, a jump spinning back kick, the likes of which no one had ever seen.
Like some Bruce Lee shit. Like melted him too. Like it was like one of those knockdowns where like he didn't know he was knocked out. Like his like body wasn't responding.
No, he had to go back and watch the highlights of that too. So this is an impressive list of KOs right here.
Oh yeah.
And Paul, we took a hit for the team here ourselves. We risked a KO ourselves with the amount of weed that we smoked trying to figure this out.
Yeah.
And ultimately we came to different conclusions.
Who you got?
For me, my number one was the latter, the one we just said. Joaquin Buckley versus Impa Kasan. Man, that's a hard one. Kasan and I don't know.
Yeah. Impa.
Buckley.
Buckley, yeah.
I couldn't deny it.
I can't...
runner-up, though, was Kevin Holland.
All right, yeah.
Because that was something
I think that's
special
everyone's
for me.
runner-up. It was
But
intense.
The spectacularness of Buckley's move where he had his foot caught and then he jumps in the air and does a complete 360 and lays that fool out cold felt like a fucking tree trunk. I couldn't deny it.
I'm going to go with the same philosophy as I had a little bit earlier in the show and just say, yes, I do agree that is one of the best KOs I've ever seen. But I do think that the winner that I choose, Francis Ngannou versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik KO, is just as vicious, and the stakes are a whole lot higher. We're talking about a title shot on the line between Rozenstruik and Ngannou, whereas Buckley's kind of just started in the UFC. And don't get me wrong, that KO and his last KO, he's on the map. He's one of the guys now, but the stakes were a whole lot higher for Rozenstruik and Ngannou. And Ngannou, that fucking knockout was disgusting. That was so vicious, bro. Like, come on.
I can't deny it was vicious, but I'm so shocked I have to fire up this other joint. I don't know if I can go on with the show if I don't smoke this joint right now, Paul.
I don't think you can, bro.
Because I don't know how you can overlook the spinning 360 back kick of the likes we'll never see. We'll see Francis Ngannou KO somebody else in a murderous fashion.
That was pretty.
We are never going to see anybody pull that kick off again
Bullshit,
in the UFC.
bro. Yair Rodriguez.
This won't be like the Showtime kick, which people emulate.
Bro, Yair Rodriguez
the circumstance has to be perfect.
Yair Rodriguez can hit this 100%. I guarantee.
Yeah, but no one's going to hold on to the foot like that again. And as soon as they see somebody spinning, they're going to be like, "Oh, I seen this shit, motherfucker," and let go.
I don't think so, because I've seen people do that before. They just usually land the kick to the body, not the face.
Sound off in the comments, folks. Let us know what you think.
I've seen people land that kick before in Taekwondo and shit.
No, you haven't.
Dude.
I know. I'm just fucking. I
was gonna say
with you.
my girl used to do Taekwondo.
I've landed that kick myself.
Have you?
No,
nice.
I have.
My girl used to do Taekwondo though, and she used to fucking. She has a video of her knocking somebody out with that shit.
Yeah, I was a yellow belt in Taekwondo. You don't fuck with me. Before I started boxing, I fucked with that yellow belt.
You're stupid.
I thought I was
but
bad
yeah, no,
too.
I'm going to Francis.
Oh yeah, I can't deny it. That's good. So we got different opinions there. We got 2 KO awards going out. So, congratulations. And if we haven't made it clear, all of you winners who are undoubtedly have been tuning in this entire time with bated breath, your prize, if you don't know, is to come on over and smoke a joint.
Yeah,
one of our killer herbs right here in Las Vegas. Next time you're in town, pick up your prize.
Hell yeah.
A fat joint from the S.W.A.T MMA podcast.
Absolutely.
Now let's go ahead and move on to the next one, Paul.
All right, so next we got a submission of the year.
Submission of the year in MMA and boxing. Yes, MMA submission of the year. Wow. Yep. We had some candidates here, man.
Another
you want
another
this?
close
this OG Kush.
Another close call for me though here.
Was it? For me, I don't know.
So
tell the people.
I'm gonna go off. I'm gonna go from the bottom to the top. All right. So our nominees are Aljamain Sterling versus Corey Sandhagen.
You got him with that guillotine.
Quick.
That was a nasty guillotine. That was very nasty.
What, like 18 seconds or something like that?
And Sandhagen's no joke. I mean, Sandhagen has had all the momentum coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Sandhagen is a lot of people were picking to be the man.
Yep.
But come in and fuck up Peter Yan.
Yep.
But no. My boy Aljo fucked him up. Put him to sleep.
Yep. And then we had
I don't know. Did he go to sleep or did he tap? I can't remember.
I think he tapped.
Yeah.
Then we have Ariana Lipsky versus Luna Carolina.
Oh my God, that knee bar.
The knee bar.
Oh my God, there's like
The
a standing.
viciousness.
This is the one where she was standing,
Yeah,
right?
standing
and she
knee
just
bar.
bent
She
her knee all the way
torqued the
back.
fuck out of it.
Oh.
She was like, "Tap, bitch."
Oh my God, I encourage you folks listening. Check these out on YouTube if you have not seen them.
It's viciousness.
Absolutely, they're short videos for all of these. But that made my knee hurt.
Oh yeah.
My God.
Yeah. And then we got Khabib versus Justin Gaichi, which was just kind of a fucking clinic. He kind of put Justin Gaichi through on the ground.
Dude, he winds up, what did that wind up being, a triangle?
Yeah, he was going to break his arm, but his mom was in the front row.
You believe that story?
I don't know, but that's fucking funny.
Whether
Just
the
to
story
say
is
that,
true or not.
that's almost like shit talking someone after the fight.
Dude,
I was going to break his arm, but his mom was in the front row, so I just choked his ass out.
Dude, that is fucking some straight up passive aggressive shit talking. Low and dirty too. Like your mama was watching. Like I embarrassed you in front of your mama, and I held back. I could have embarrassed you way worse, but you know,
Could have
your
broke
mama.
your shit, but hey,
I want your fucking mama
Choke her
crying
out.
because I hurt you so bad. That's cold. Khabib's cold. He's a cold son of a bitch, man. Talented as fuck. That was slick, man.
it was slick as fuck, dude. Like, let's just be honest. We all know I'm not
Dude,
the biggest Khabib fan.
Neither
but
am I. You know, if you listen to our show, you know. But we also don't
but
deny
I
him his
cannot
due.
deny that was one of the slickest submissions I've ever seen. These two were super close for me, like super close. This is second to what I have in first place, and my winner of the sub of the year, and that's AJ McKee versus Darian Caldwell.
That's my
Bellator
winner as well, with
253.
no fanfare. That's who we both picked.
Yeah.
Yep.
Dude, that
AJ
was
McKee.
just it was a hybrid submission. That's what really did it for me.
Dude, when we talk about the stakes here, I mean, let's talk about it. Caldwell's came in. I mean, he's a NCAA Division I
Well,
wrestling
it was the
champ.
semifinals.
I mean,
of
it's the semifinals
tournament,
of the featherweight tournament, and you got AJ who is undefeated. He's a blue chip prospect from Bellator. They've had him in there this whole time. If you follow Bellator, you know what he's got. But this is a big moment for him because Caldwell was a two-time champ. He's only lost to two guys before that. And he comes in and he takes AJ down right away, which is so he's in his wheelhouse. Caldwell's right in his bread and butter.
Yep.
And then what
from
happens?
full guard.
Yeah,
He
from full
fucking-
guard.
He sets up with the body triangle, and then like it hits him with like an inverted fucking like. It was like an inverted full Nelson almost.
Well, it looks like a guillotine, but it was actually called the 100% position. And he had his arms, like he had the triangle, like you said. Then he had his locked arms around his Caldwell's head.
Yeah.
And then with the triangle and then those locked, he was able to just crank his fucking head down.
Yeah.
And with the leverage there,
Yeah.
he had no choice but to
He's
tap.
gonna break his neck. Like, you know what I mean?
And that's
Ultimately,
an ultra rare
that is
submission.
a fucking high level, high IQ submission.
Yeah,
too.
and it wasn't pulled off against a chump.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like he was in there against some fucking
Not to
white
say
belt.
Justin Gaichi's a chump.
No. I'm saying in this, like, some of these really high level moves you don't see because it's really hard to execute them against another high level fighter. Like, you can do it against a guy who doesn't know his BJJ very well.
Yeah.
But you can't really get in there against a guy with a experienced
Well, and it was
ground
just
game.
such an awkward position that you like. Darren Caldwell wasn't even trying to fight it at first because he
No,
thought he had
I
nothing.
didn't think it was anything.
And then out of nowhere, he's like, "Fuck! Oh shit! I got a tap."
It's not the most visually impressive submission. Like,
Yeah.
if you see it, you're just looking like he's hugging him, and then he's hugging him tight, and then he taps, and it's kind of like, but once you see what
Once
he's
you watch
doing
the
and
replay
learn
and you
what
see
he's,
Darren Caldwell's face, and he's
Yeah.
like,
oh,
like
it was
it's
brutal.
like,
It was absolutely amazing. It was a super rare sub. Caldwell had no choice but to tap. AJ McKee, that was his statement win right there. Like, we all know
fight
he's
for the
good.
belt.
That's some fucking I'm great shit right there.
He's in the finals.
A former champion, done against in a high pressure situation against a guy who is in his wheelhouse, a guy who's boom, boom, take down. I'm gonna take you down. I'm gonna ground and pound you. No, you ain't. I mean, I was just blown away by that.
Yeah.
My runner-up was not Khabib Gaichi, although I don't disagree with your statements on that, but mine was the Aljamain Sterling, Corey Sandhagen guillotine in 18 seconds. I really like that. That was something. But all of these were really great, but we got to go with AJ for the win. Come get your joint, AJ.
All right, so moving on. Now we got our breakout fighter of the year.
Now this is an interesting.
It's an interesting one because of the year we're in.
Yeah.
If we were in this year, a lot of these guys, a lot of them have fought like twice, pretty much. Once or twice. Got one guy. Only one guy on the list has fought a bunch. You know what I mean? It's been a tough year. It's hard to get fucking 5 fights in and you're in a Bellator contract. It's hard to get, a few fights in when you're brand new in the UFC. You know what I'm saying? So
There's a lot of debate here, so let's and we'll talk about these guys as we go through them before we announce the winner. Because there's some debate amongst us, but let's go ahead with the list. Who you got number? In no particular order here.
Well, we just talked about him, so I'll just kind of start at the top. Our first nominee is going to be AJ Mckee, because not to say that he was not, a top-notch fighter before, but I feel like that win
Breakout
cemented
doesn't necessarily mean new.
Yeah.
But that
like
win
George
definitely
Masvidal was a
cemented.
breakout fighter of last year.
Right.
You know what I mean? He's been around forever.
He's been around forever. Precisely.
So in AJ McKee's like he's fighting for the title now, man. Like he went from being a prospect to being like, he just has constantly improved in every single facet of his game, and now it's coming to fruition. You know what I mean? He's still undefeated. He's still young. He likes to talk some shit. You know what I mean?
I'm very excited by his prospects. Yeah, he's legit as it comes. Next on the list, we had another fighter we were just talking about, being Kevin Holland.
5-0.
Amazing year. 5-0 this year. Yeah. Caps it off with just that statement against Jacare. Who's next?
Next, we got Hamzat Chimaev. And here's my thing with him. I think he maybe wins this award had he fought December 19th and beat Leon.
I would agree with that statement, because here's my problem. I'm not disagreeing that he has come out in a short period of time, looked very impressive, and picked up 3 solid wins. But for me, I don't think that we would be talking about him near as much if it wasn't for 2 things. A, being Dana White falling in love with him and talking about him, and B, the pandemic causing a more of a focus on what's going on. Because when Dana White falls in love with a fighter, sometimes the MMA media then regurgitates everything that Dana says. And now this guy is making a lot of the general MMA media's list as the breakout fighter of the year, and I happen to just think it's BS. I don't think he deserves a title shot yet, because he's had 1 fight at 170 against a really overmatched guy. I mean, I think it was Rise Mckee. Yeah. It was a blown-up 55er, 0-2 at welterweight. And now he's fighting Leon Edwards, and people are saying he should be fighting for the title over the win. I just think that's horseshit. But I won't deny that he has come out and looked impressive. Yeah. And he deserves a ranked opponent. I don't think he deserves a title shot.
Yeah, I agree. There's steps. There's steps. That's it. Here's the thing. I think what also helps him out a lot is his willingness to have took those 2 fights within 6 days or whatever. Remember he was on one card and then on the next card, that whole thing, ESPN really ran with that story. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, Kevin Holland doing similar things, taking 5 fights. He had short notice stuff in there too, but Chimaev really did the fast turnaround. He talks a lot of shit, And when he came out against Meerschaert, I mean, dude, he KO'd him in 17 seconds. It was very
it was pretty
impressive.
nasty.
Like,
But that was
it
185.
It was at 185. It doesn't have shit to do with 70. I'm sorry. Just like when Conor fights Cowboy at 70, that shouldn't get him a title shot at 55.
Yeah.
As much as I love Conor and I love that fight, I, for one, try to maintain a tiny bit of sporting integrity of my own.
Yeah, if you're in one division, you should be in that division's rankings.
Right. That fight, I feel like those fights should count against his quest to go fight Adesanya, but shouldn't have shit to do with fighting Usman.
Yeah.
I don't think he deserves the fight with Edwards even, I'll be honest. I think the UFC forced Edwards into that fight. But that's a whole nother debate. Yeah. I don't think they did. I think it's pretty clear they did. They cut him at his refusal. And then when he said, okay, I'll fight him, they reinstated him.
Yeah.
Anyways, next on the list would be Joaquin Buckley, who really broke out thanks to that amazing KO. I mean, the guy was the talk of the town.
In a row.
And then he comes out in his next fight and lays waste. Was it against Chaos?
No.
No, who did he fight?
It was another lower level guy.
But he came out with, and he KO'd him with his fists in a very impressive manner as well.
It was on the same card as the Chaos fight.
Yeah, he looked very good doing that. And this is a solid list of guys here who we debated back and forth. And ultimately, who did you pick?
I got Kevin Holland.
I got Kevin Holland.
Yeah.
I think it's hard to deny.
It's hard to deny 5-0.
The 5-0 and capping it against Jacare.
And the KO and
And like you're saying, if Chimaev had gone in and faced Edwards, who is what is he ranked? In the top 5 for sure.
I think he's 3.
Despite having not fought in God knows fucking when.
Yeah.
And slightly suspect competition. He does have 8 wins in a row.
Yeah.
Which is a lot in the UFC. If he had won that fight, you're right, in December, there would be no denying that he deserved to be in this talk of breakout fighter.
Yeah.
But for me, he just didn't do enough. Impressive, didn't do enough. I don't count social media and clicks. Like MMAfighting.com listed him as their guy based on that. They had him ranked above Kevin Holland specifically because, I quote, social media and clicks. And I got into a back and forth on Twitter with the article writer. I think that's, dude, that counts for Dana White and for like his manager Ali should be worried about social media and clicks. And maybe the website is because that's how they make money. But what does that have to do with Breakout Fighter?
Yeah.
This is about what they did in the octagon.
Yeah.
Holland with the 5-0 and the major KO.
If you wanna give him that and make him the most popular of the year or something like that, make some other thing, because like if you're talking about the breakout fighter of the year, there has to be performances behind.
Well, dude, if it's social media and clicks, then Conor McGregor was this year's breakout fucking fighter because I guarantee you that he got more social media and clicks despite having one fight than Chimaev did.
Yeah. True.
Because that guy can't take a fucking shit without them telling us all about it. It's weird. But, whatever. So that's who we got. Kevin Holland. We know you smoke, bro. Hit us up. Kevin Holland, I'm excited for him coming next year. Like, he's going to get I don't think he's going to ease into a title shot right away, but he's right up there now in this mix.
He's up there now.
He's an important figure now.
He should be in the top 10
division.
at least.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think Sosa was ranked like 7th or something like that.
I think he's 12th.
Man, how the mighty have fallen. But his name still carries that weight.
It does, yeah.
All right.
So let's transition a little bit back into some boxing. Let's give out our award for Boxer of the Year. So this one was tough, because a lot of boxing, nobody really had more than one fight. No,
unfortunately, that makes it pretty difficult.
And so just kind of going down the list, it's all this familiar faces, We got Crawford, Spence, Lopez,
of course.
AJ, Canelo.
Tyson Fury.
All those guys, and Tyson Fury. All those guys fought once. Well, we've talked about a couple of these fights already. So let's just go ahead and let's just give our pick first.
Let's just give our pick.
Yeah.
After much debate and many, many hours of pot smoking, we have come up with
Tyson Fury.
The man,
Yeah,
the myth,
come on.
the legend.
Gypsy King.
I mean, there were those that were questioning him coming into that second fight in January with Deontay Wilder, saying he couldn't do it. He should have been KO'd.
Came in too heavy.
Changed his
What's
trainer.
he doing?
Got rid of Ben Davison. Went, with the Kronk boys.
Yep.
Fucking, and man, he came out and laid waste. He just, Wilder's still fucked up. It's December. Wilder's still scrambled, talking about conspiracy theories, talking about
egg weights,
loaded gloves, spiked water, my costume too heavy, fucking
everything.
Firing
but you got
coaches,
your ass whooped.
everything. But Fury kicked my ass because Fury changed his style for that fight up completely.
Completely, yeah.
He silenced them critics. He proved he is still the man at heavyweight. He is the lineal champion. Now he's also holds one of the 4 belts. He's destined to be the unified champion again. I think that fight gets made in 2021. I don't know if it's the first one of AJ's.
It's already signed.
They're trying. Usyk has not backed out yet, though. They have not paid him off. He has not agreed.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
I hope he does. But either way, it'll
Money
happen.
talks.
Sometime during the year it'll happen. We're all just hoping it happens
He's too
sooner
small, man. Come
rather
on.
than
Back on
later. Yeah, he don't want none of Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury will fuck his world
Tyson
up.
Fury.
Look, I
Fuck
love that
him
dude.
up.
I think he's awesome.
Yeah.
Unified cruiserweight champ. But we're
He'll
talking
get
Tyson
fucked
Fury,
up by
man.
Tyson
Tyson Fury completed his amazing comeback in 2020. I mean, he completed it in 2020.
Yeah.
It was at the beginning of the year, but it was the cap on everything that he had done.
Yep.
Everything since he had beat Klitschko.
Yep.
And had gone through the well-documented troubles, the depression, the driving his fucking Ferrari at 120 miles an hour with his fucking eyes closed like Walter White on the highway in Breaking Bad. Like, fuck it.
Yeah.
And battles back. He took that first Deontay Wilder fight against his father's advice. He was fucking not his usual self in that fight. He wasn't completely... even though he was heavier coming into the fight, he was fatter in the Deontay Wilder one.
Well, here's
fight.
the thing: he put on more. He put on muscle.
Right? Like he was still losing the fat he had because he ballooned up to 400 pounds.
Yeah.
So yes, he was heavier, but he's heavier with muscle. In the first one, he was still heavier with fat, and he was not in tip top shape.
Yeah.
And he still fucking made it that far, and he just came out and he put a stamp
He's
on the
fucking
comeback.
6'9", bro. Come on.
He's 6'9", and we've all said it. The guy moves like fucking Sweet Pea Pernell Whitaker, man. Yeah. God rest that man's soul. Fucking Tyson Fury. And what an amazing thing to have Tyson Fury fighting, the namesake of Mike Tyson. In the same year, we see Mike Tyson come back.
Yeah.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Let's just be honest. We almost picked Mike Tyson as our boxer.
Dude, that's my runner-up for Boxer of the Year. No joke. I don't care if that was an exhibition.
Change the landscape.
If you saw fucking Mike Tyson in that fight, you were blown away. Yeah. I don't care. You can, if you weren't, you're fooling yourself. That was amazing. That was an amazing performance.
Yeah.
And it's so important because no one thought really
it was going to be able to happen.
The guy hadn't been in the ring in 15 years. He's coming off the couch. Yeah. I got pictures with Fat Mike. Yeah. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with that, dude. He famously went on Rogan's show talking about, I don't train, I barely follow boxing, I'm not going to unleash the beast. Yeah. The beast has been caged for fucking years. Yeah. I can't even fucking watch this shit. You know, all the times we see him, show up at boxing, this paid promotional stuff. He's coming in and kind of faking it, up until he decides to unleash the beast. And he was really close for my guy.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if that had been a sanctioned bout, was about the only thing that I didn't do it for me. Yeah. It wasn't actually a sanctioned bout.
Yeah, but ultimately,
if it had been, if it had changed Tyson's record, you know what I mean, then he would have been it. He would have been my fighter of the year.
Yeah,
but he didn't. Tyson Fury gets it from both of us. God damn it, we're looking forward to a 2021 from that man.
True.
All right, Paul.
All right, so let's go on. Go ahead and move on to our back over to MMA. To our female fighter of the year.
Now, not a whole lot of debate is possible. Right now.
Well, here's
Let's
the problem.
be honest, because we've got a really dominant fighter.
Yeah, Valentina just has more fights. You know what I mean? Ultimately,
like Valentina Shevchenko. That's who it is. It's Valentina Shevchenko. That's the fighter of the year.
Just because it's like, come on. When you go down the list, I mean, yes, Amanda Nunes had a great performance versus Felicia Spencer, and Zhang Weili had a great performance against Joanna, but ultimately Valentina had multiple performances
And she
and
looks
multiple
spectacular
great
in them.
ones.
Yes.
You know,
And she had tougher challenges, I feel, in her, at least when compared to Nunes.
yeah, I was
not
gonna
not
say,
not
Zhang was
not the
that was a
115
tough
fight,
Yeah.
but Nunes at 35
She was
and
my
at
close
45, her
runner-up.
competition
Would
is
be
pretty like.
yeah, my close runner-up would be Zhang Weili.
Yeah, for sure. Gosh, she's a tank.
Yeah. All right, so this next one is tough. So I'm just gonna go down the list of nominees, and then we'll kind of
Well,
say a
what's
little
the category here?
We're talking male fighter of the year. So
In
we're
mixed
talking
martial arts.
Yeah, we're getting to the real juicy picks here.
We are. And we have differing views here. We had to debate a lot. And the debate still rages.
The debate still rages.
You know, I'll tell you now, my pick wasn't even on most people's list, and it's probably going to be on our list because I wound up picking the motherfucker. But this is highly subjective. We have Israel Adesanya, of course, the UFC's 185-pound champ, who had an amazing year. I mean, he had 2 title defenses. He looked spectacular in one of them. We had Jan Blachowicz, who captured the 205-pound title and is that reigning champ there now that John Jones has vacated. We've got Davidson Figuerato, who went 3-0 this year. That's
With the one tie also.
with the one tie against Benavidez.
No, Moreno.
Or Moreno, I'm sorry. It was what was it, a draw against Benavidez?
No, against
And that was
Moreno.
that last year.
No, he not. Remember, he whooped him twice.
Oh, but he didn't get the title because he missed weight. That's what it was. Yeah, he missed weight, so he didn't win the title with that one. Had to go back, beat him again to solidify the title win. Looked amazing against Moreno in a draw. A fight I feel he would have won without the point deduction, which he deserved. It was a legit point deduction. And then we've got Stipe Meochik, which may or may not be on some people's list, but for me, he had only one fight. Not unusual for the heavyweight, but he did cement his status with another victory against Daniel Cormier. So we had to go back and watch a lot of film on this. We had to look at fight stats. We had to look at consequences. We had to look at all kinds of different factors. We had to smoke a lot of marijuana.
Whole lot.
We had to talk a lot about a lot of things. But I'm going to go ahead and let you do your pick first while I puff down on this big bubbler. You tell the people your pick for Fighter of the Year, Mixed Martial Arts.
Jan Blachowicz.
Jan Blachowicz.
Yeah.
And why? What were your
I just
reasons
feel like he was
for Jan?
he was the dark horse, bro. No one thought Jan was gonna win the 205 belt. It was when John vacated, it was Dominic's belt to lose.
Dominic Reyes was in a lot of salty MMA John Jones haters fans the uncrowned champ of that division because he took Jones to the limit, and people thought that he technically won the fight against Jones even though he lost on the scorecards.
And then also, if you look back, Jan also put to bed everyone's consensus #1 contender in Corey Anderson and put him to sleep. Sent
Corey
him
was
out of
supposed
the
to be
UFC.
trouble. And he introduced Corey to the fucking Polish Power.
Yeah.
And then he went on and introduced Reyes to the Polish Power. And Reyes was
he
favored in that
fucked
fight.
Reyes up. Like,
And not just with power, with skill,
dude,
too. He
those
manhandled
kicks
him.
to the body.
Oh.
Remember the bruise, dude, he had on his ribs going into the second round? Like, come on. Like, that performance cannot be denied. So I have Jan Blachowicz as my fighter of the year. Congratulations, sir.
Congratulations, John. You can, next time you're in Vegas,
Come on down.
come on down to the studio, pick up your golden joint. And I cannot disagree with the amazingness that Jan had. He was, in fact, my runner-up. And I don't think he's getting a lot of press when it comes to MMA Fighter of the Year in the general media right now. And I'm not sure why.
I don't get it. Ultimately, he's been the underdog.
Well,
People don't even realize he's champion.
and if he gets this fight with Adesanya, people don't realize he might be, with his size and weight difference, too much for Adesanya. We'll see. Could
We'll
be.
see.
But if he were to do something like that, then will people be talking about him next year at the awards?
Yep.
We'll see. We
will
shall see. Now, I, however, ultimately, Paul, came to a different conclusion for my MMA fighter of the year. Mixed martial arts is Stipe Meochik,
Oh, shit.
heavyweight champion, who fought but one time this year, a decision win against Daniel Cormier.
I mean, I guess.
I have my reasons here, and I thought about this a lot. And here's a little known fact. A lot of people don't know about Stipe Meochik. A lot of people talk about John Jones just like came in and was so good from the get-go. He's in the UFC and in MMA with very little training, just a few months. So was Stipe. Stipe had only been training in mixed martial arts for 8 fucking months before his first pro fight. Like, Stipe, he won the trilogy versus DC, and he was coming off the KO of Daniel Cormier in a fight that he was losing on the scorecards technically until he adjusted, saw an opening on Cormier's stomach and side where Cormier was leaving it wide open, started landing some vicious body blows. Cormier winds up sinking to the ground, getting TKO'd in that fight, right? Then a lot of people came back and said, DC's going to win. That fucking Stipe's not legit. DC's going to come out and going to dominate him in this fight. You had, of course, Stipe facing different opposition as well because he got eye-poked in both them fucking fights. The first one, in my opinion, he only lost the first time to
Definitely got
DC.
Daniel back in that fight, though.
He did. But the very first time when he lost his belt to DC, I mean, he was poked multiple times in the eye on the side that he got KO'd in moments later. Yeah. I think, in my opinion, that's the only reason he lost that fight. Is the only reason he got caught because he couldn't see the fucking punch coming. And in MMA, in case you're listening and wondering why he didn't say something, if you say you can't see after an eye poke, they stop the fight, and that's it.
Yeah.
You're going to fucking lie. Every fighter does. And like, no, I'm fine.
Yeah.
When they're not. So, and you pay the price.
Well, you had to get eye surgery.
I mean, he paid the price, and he goes and fights him again, and he has to go. He needs to get fucking eye surgery because he got so many fucking pokes.
Yeah.
And then Daniel Cormier, yeah, like I said, he poked him so much. He gets up in eye surgery, and then the pandemic hits. And if somehow you're unaware, Stipe Meochik is a firefighter and a paramedic as a job. Yeah. And he, during all of this, is going out and he's taking care of people during a crisis in his city. You know, he fits the very definition of an essential worker in this. So he's not, sitting in his home gym training. He's out with a lot of other shit on his mind. He's also got a family at home. He's got a wife. He's got a kid. So he's facing the pandemic while having, it's not like he just worried about himself. Like, he's got to be worried about his family at home in the pandemic. He's got to go out while the rest of us are sitting here and doing whatever we had to do. He was putting it on the line, and he was catching some flack. People saying he was ducking DC because he couldn't fucking train because the gyms were shut down, right? And then what does the UFC do? The UFC moves it and decides not to have it on Fight Island. And what I personally feel was a calculated move on their part in order to make it more advantageous for Cormier. They move it to the Apex Center, which has the much smaller cage, which is supposedly going to favor Daniel Cormier's wrestling. Yeah. And fucking Stipe comes out and he cements his status with what I think is more importantly a decision win. You can't say he caught him with some lucky punch. You can't say fucking, oh no, Daniel slipped up. No, he went out and he fucking, I should have written the scores down, but I didn't.
I think it was 4-1 though, right?
I'm pretty certain it was 4-1. It was pretty emphatic. There was not any debate at the end. Yeah. And it put
the trilogy to bed.
Years of shit. Years of eye poke trauma. Years of bullshit. You can't beat him. Stipe's not that good. Stipe not getting credit. Dana not liking the fucking guy. Then he's going out. You can't tell me he wasn't distracted when you're going out and you're making 911. Who do you think fucking comes when you call 911? Yeah. The fucking fire trucks come. Yeah. So especially in a pandemic, you know what I mean? And he's undoubtedly he doesn't go out and toot his own horn too much, so he's not telling us any stories about shit that happened, but I promise shit happened.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, so for me, all of those things put together for me just made Stipe Meochik the fighter of the year. And yes, I am counting some of these outside of the cage things because that's a fucking real hero right there, man.
I feel
like he's a millionaire.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to be out fighting fires, making 911 calls, going to fucking people's houses who are fucking have the virus and they're fucking calling for help.
Yeah, I feel it.
So that was it for me, man. He was
With your
reasoning, my guy.
I like it.
So that's it for fighter of the year. Stipe, I know you don't smoke, man, so I'm gonna burn one for you.
So I'm gonna burn one for you.
I'll take the hit, my guy.
All right,
but
guys.
Congratulations.
So we got our last award of the year, and
I'm knocking
course,
shit over in the
yep.
studio.
Yep.
Knocking my daughter's painting a Conor over.
Damn,
knocking a UFC fucking case over.
Come on.
Come on.
All right, so
I smoked weed before this one, man. This is it. This is the fight of the year for mixed martial arts.
Fight of the year.
Man.
So we've got 4 nominees.
And we could have had more, honestly.
We could have.
We could have made 10.
Probably, yeah.
But at some point, you just have to cull out a list and work
These
from
4
there.
were fucking wars all the way up and down. So we do have a couple differing opinions here as well. So I'm kind of just going to go down the list, and then
Just
we'll
go
talk
down the list, and we'll talk about our individual winners.
All right. So ultimately, I don't even know if it's a recency bias. Like we talked about before, this fight was probably the second best, if not the best, flyweight fight of all time. We got Brandon Moreno versus Davidson Figuerato, which is just
It was such a good fight. And
Such
since
a
we've
good
been
fight.
discussing that, I've been trying to figure out if it is a recency bias.
yeah.
As far as like the flyweight division is concerned, I don't think it is.
No.
We've seen spectacular moments.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, DJ's flying armbar.
Yeah.
And we've seen some wars. We talked about, DJ versus Uncle Creepy.
Yeah.
But that was something. The savagery and the power on display.
Yeah.
The back and forth. Moreno was so tough.
Yeah.
So tough. I mean, we talk a lot about Figueredo, but Moreno, what a chin.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, and he's smaller
It kind
than
of
Figueiredo.
it kind of silences the talks of like Henry Cejudo coming back too. Like,
Dude, Davidson
even
Figueredo might
keep
fuck
going
up
back
Henry
and forth.
Cejudo.
He might, dude.
He just might.
He just might.
He's pretty savage, man.
He just might. But Henry can take a punch. We
Henry
saw
can.
that. We saw that in the Marlon
Figueiredo's
fight.
big, which is odd because if you look at the heights on list, he's only 5'5", and Moreno's 5'6". But when you saw him in a cage, it was like Moreno was definitely the smaller man.
Well, I just feel like
Like-
their body types are different.
Absolutely.
Moreno's more of like the lanky, like fast, scrappy guy body style, and whereas like Figueiredo's like he's freaking chiseled. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, I could watch that 2 more times. Like,
Absolutely
honestly.
amazing fight. And we could keep on talking about it, but we better move on to the next fight on the list, which is...
So, ultimately, I feel like if this fight happened at the end of the year, this would be fight of the year. But because it happened at the beginning of the year, I feel like it's aged. But Zhang Weili versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk at UFC 248.
Well, you're kind of giving your opinion away on this one, so that's clearly not your fight of the year
not,
based on what
no.
you said.
No.
But that is on the list. That was a tremendous fight. Absolutely amazing back and forth there. Ultimately, we see a split decision win for Wally Zhang. I forget. I stumble over her name sometime for some reason. It's probably the cannabis. How about Dan Hooker versus Dustin Poirier? That's on the list.
Yeah. Hell
We
of a
see
fight.
Poirier win a close fight, but Hooker really gave it to him.
Yeah.
That was an amazing, amazing fight. That was on my short list as well. I mean, all these were clearly the short list, but I mean, I started off with like a list of 10, and that was definitely at the top from the get-go.
Yeah.
And ultimately, the last one being...
Josh Emmett versus Shane Burgos at UFC ESPN 11. That was a hell of a fight. Talking about literally just a fucking bang it out war. Like both guys just
Those
standing
guys
each
were
other
throwing
and
blows.
just fucking going. Both guys got hell of a chin. Fucking Josh tore his ACL in the first round too, and just kept going the whole time.
Right on power punching through.
Yeah,
that.
it was nuts. And he was eating leg kicks on that side too.
Mm-hmm.
It was nuts.
Tough
Hell
as
of a fight.
nails, that guy.
Ultimately, Josh wins the fight as well.
Yeah, very good performance from Josh there.
Yeah.
But now let's go ahead. We've got a split on this one as well.
Yeah, you go ahead and state your claim, sir.
Well, after looking at all those aforementioned fights and many others, I have come to the decision for my mixed martial arts fight of the year. It's the 115-pound strawweight women's championship between Wally Zhang and Joanna champion Young Jacek. And here's
No
my
longer
reasons
champion,
why.
Young Jacek, you mean?
You're right. She's lost 4 title fights in a row, but she is that performance loses no shine. She took a massive headbutt in that fight.
Oh my God, she
where
looked
she got
like
this
Frankenstein.
hematoma. It looked like fucking E.T. had a baby with Frankenstein, and it
That
learned
was
how
not
to
a
fight.
headbutt. She was just getting jabbed in the
Well,
forehead.
there was a headbutt too.
Yeah, but there was
Yeah,
tons
but
of jabs in her
then
forehead.
old girl kept punching that
Yeah.
shit. She saw that swell and was like, "Oh yeah,
Okay, let's
I'm gonna
fuck that.
punch the fuck out of
The,
this."
it was one side, and then she punched in the other side.
But you might be surprised when you hear the final stats for this. It was a split decision. We are talking about a fight that, before I give the breakdown of the total of who threw what, my reasons for this win for fight of the year are 783 total strikes thrown.
Jesus.
And these are strikes by high-level strikers. These are not a couple of rookies just out there winging shit wildly. These were 783 beautiful strikes thrown, which we saw 768 of them were significant strikes.
Yeah, it was a
I mean,
war.
that is amazing. And if you look at the breakdown, you've got the champion Zhang, who she gets the nod in the split decision, but when it comes to strikes, she threw a total of 170 landed strikes out of a total of 413 for about 41% on her striking.
Well, she was, you know what she was doing is she was filling the gaps. It's like Joanna was a little bit sharper, but what Zhang was doing the whole time was every time that they would go in, she would jab her way in, and like even if she didn't land, she'd just jab her way in every time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, out of those 170 landed strikes, dude, 165 of them were significant strikes. I mean, think about that.
Yeah.
That's not. She's
fucking
not
nuts.
wasting around with the pitter patter.
No.
Like, not at all. She's 1 for 8 on the takedowns. All right, those didn't really play much of a part in this fight.
No, it wasn't really big.
But then we
at all.
switch over to Young Jacek's numbers, and she threw a total of 370 strikes. So she threw less, but she landed 196 strikes for a 54% strike average, which is very impressive in a mixed martial arts fight like that. So she outstruck the champion by 26 strikes, and out of hers, 186 were significant. All right, so only 10 of those were unsignificant strikes, and she had no takedowns.
Let me ask you a serious question here.
Yeah.
So, if you are a judge of this fight, and you're round by round, you know, you're sitting, you know, you're judging the fight, you're watching, and at the end of the fight, you see what Joanna looks like, and you see what Weili looks like, and the numbers are not out of whack in either way, but the significant strikes are similar.
Oh,
How
I
do
think that's
you
how
know
she
what I'm
got the
saying?
nod.
Like that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. Like I think it ultimately
that's
comes
fair,
down.
but-
I don't know if it's fair, but ultimately it kind of is. Though.
Damage plays a part.
I was gonna say it ultimately kind of is though. If you're in a fight,
In a back
we're
and
in a
forth
fight,
fight like
bro.
that.
Yeah, we're in a fight. So it ultimately.
I wasn't mad at it.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. Ultimately, maybe she did land a few more punches, but I feel like Weili did a lot more.
I'm not
damage.
angry at the split. I think it should have been a split. If it was a split for Joanna, I would have been like, okay.
Yeah, I
For
thought
me,
it
I'm
was
like,
really,
okay.
really like
That was a
really close. Yeah.
legit. And for me, it was an absolutely tremendous fight. It's my fight of the year. And fuck it to all you goddamn cavemen out there who try and say that women can't fucking put on good MMA fights. You read the fucking comment section on
pretty
this
high
shit.
level.
Some people are still in this mindset that like they shouldn't even have women's divisions in the UFC. Get the fuck out of here. It's not just Shevchenko and Amanda Nunes. There's fucking talent up and down. Yeah, is 145 whack? Yes.
But they could still feel.
Are there some weaker, still learning fighters? Yes, but there are some fucking high level technicians.
Oh yeah.
High level. It's not just Ronda in her arm bars anymore.
Yeah.
these fucking women are out here working hard and fucking showing us that they can be not just good women's fighters, but some of the best martial artists in the fucking world. Yeah. And that's why that's my fucking fight of the year, regardless of men or women or whatever. So that's me. Let's get over to you, Paul. After mad debate,
to take Dustin Poirier versus Dan Hooker.
Woo! That was a barn burner.
Hell of a fight.
Absolutely,
just a
bro.
hell of a fight. Kind of fight that you just like. It's just there's no losers. You know what I mean?
No.
Like
Hooker didn't lose any shine with that loss.
Fuck no, he didn't.
He probably moved up the rankings.
Yeah, he probably. All right, pull him up there. But yeah, it was just one of those fights that you love to see. It was like two guys just willing to put their fucking, foot on the line and fucking just throw. And ultimately, what it really came down to is I feel like Poirier was just a little bit sharper as far as like landing. Because what Dan was doing is like in the early rounds, he was kind of trying to outwork Poirier. And where like I feel like Poirier was just landing the bigger shots. You know what I mean?
Wasn't Dan doing a lot of spinning shit?
A little bit.
That
He was
wasn't
doing
really
kind of
landing.
weird shit. Yeah.
Sometimes that can be detrimental against a workhorse like Poirier, who's got that power too.
Well, dude, and Dan wore some fucking damage on his face, man. He was fucking going. He was like I was saying, like he was just refusing to die out there. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of just how you have to be in those
that guy's
fucking
a warrior,
wars.
Man.
Yeah,
absolutely. The city kickboxing guys, man. Circles back to our fucking, how we started this show talking about the gym of the year and the coach of the year, city kickboxing. That's where Dan Hooker's coming from.
Yeah.
And you've got fucking Dustin Poirier at ATT, who was my runner-up on gym of the year. It was really down to those two for me. And it's not, it doesn't surprise me that your pick for fight of the year are guys from those two gyms.
Yeah.
It's almost like the two gyms facing off,
Honestly.
Well, I'm going to sit here and we're going to load up this final bowl of Gorilla Glue number 4 and this big, beautiful bubbler here.
Of 2020.
I'm hoping you're smoking on some good stuff, too, as we're wrapping this show up. You know who I want to thank, looking back on this year's, like, seriously, I want to thank all these, 100%, all these fucking fighters. We already talked about Dana, but, Dana's doing his job, and he's paid good fucking money to do it. These fighters are doing their job. They're not paid good money. They don't have protections like a lot of us do. They're not unionized. They don't have job security. They're independent contractors who in almost every single case are underpaid.
Yeah.
And they're going out there and
a lot of them don't have gyms. They're sleeping in their gyms.
Yeah.
And fucking doing what they got to do, staying away from their families, putting in work for everybody just to enjoy. And there's really,
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
We
for
would
all
have
these
no
fucking
show
fights.
without all that.
All that hard work.
Hell yeah.
Thank all the winners, the losers, the coaches, the trainers, all of them, man.
Yep.
Fucking, it's not lost on us. Yeah. You've got a background in wrestling where you competed a lot there. My background is in amateur boxing, Golden Gloves. So we both have a small little taste, of kind of what that shit is like. We've been in gyms, we see the hard work that goes on behind the scenes that makes these fighters who they are. Yeah. And these guys we think the fighters are underpaid. What the fuck you think these coaches are getting paid, bro?
Yeah, exactly.
They're getting 10% of the shit fighter pay.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're one of these really top-notch high-level guys, they're grinding it out too.
Yeah.
So we're thankful for all that shit because all that goes into what we see, on TV and what we get to talk about here on the show.
Yep.
And I'm going to spark this up here. Finish with our favorite weed. We got lots of exciting things here on the 2020 horizon. Some of it we still can't talk about due to non-disclosure agreements, but we got some things coming up in the boxing world. You're going to be seeing us a little bit more on some upcoming fights. We're going to be doing some exciting things here on the show as 2020 comes through. Studios moving to a different location, which will enable us to have guests on the show here as COVID allows. And we're looking forward to getting our distribution back on the radio, among many, many other things. And so thank you to everybody for tuning in this year. It's been a hell of a 2020. I'm glad it's over, Paul.
Yeah, it's cool.
If you're brand new to the podcast, you can catch us on all your major podcast outlets, including Amazon Podcasts, Spotify Music, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Podcast Bay. The list goes on and on. We've got video on YouTube if you happen to like watching video instead. All this information is in one handy location for you.
SWATMMA.com, where you can head over there, click the gear button, support the podcast, and yeah, man. Thanks, everybody.
See you next year, everybody.
See you next year.
Peace.
Peace.